Does your feline overlord scream at the food bowl like they haven't eaten in decades, even though you just fed them? Or maybe they are aggressively stealing your pizza crust? If your cat is constantly begging for food, acting like a bottomless pit, and scavenging your kitchen counters, it is not just because they are a cute, food-loving glutton. The reality is much darker. Worldwide, nearly 60% of indoor cats are currently overweight or clinically obese, and this epidemic is silently destroying their health. Research shows that obesity can actually shorten a cat's life expectancy by up to 2.5 years. That is a massive chunk of time stolen away just because of extra food. So, dismissing their obsessive food-seeking behavior as just a quirky personality trait is incredibly dangerous. There are serious underlying causes we need to uncover right now. Welcome to Purr Decoder, the channel where we unravel the weirdest feline mysteries. I am Dr. Luna, your resident curiosity expert, here to translate what your cat is thinking. Today, we are diving deep into the psychology, biology, and medical mysteries behind your cat's insatiable appetite. Why are they so obsessed, and how can we finally fix it? To truly understand why your cat acts like they are starving, we have to hop in a time machine and look at their wild ancestors. They were built for a very specific lifestyle. In the wild, cats did not get a giant bowl of kibble delivered to them. They had to hunt 10 to 20 times a day, catching tiny bite-sized meals like mice or small insects. Because of this frequent small meal lifestyle, a cat's stomach is incredibly tiny. In fact, an average cat's stomach is only about the size of a standard ping pong ball. They simply are not built for massive buffets. Their entire digestive system is designed to process tiny amounts of high-protein meat continuously throughout the entire day. Now, enter the modern indoor lifestyle. Our pampered pets cannot hunt for their dinner anymore, so they become entirely dependent on whatever feeding schedule we decide to use. In this process, their completely natural eating rhythm gets completely destroyed. We often dump a massive mountain of food into their bowl just twice a day, which is unnatural. Or even worse, we use the dreaded free feeding method, keeping the bowl filled to the brim 24/7. From the cat's perspective, their hunting rhythm is totally broken. With free feeding, the food is always right in front of them, so whenever they feel slightly bored or stressed, they just saunter over to the bowl out of pure mindless habit. When this cycle repeats endlessly, they actually lose the biological ability to distinguish between true physical hunger and fake psychological hunger. They just eat to eat. But here is a massive detail that many owners completely overlook: the actual quality of the food. Cats are obligate carnivores, meaning they absolutely require animal protein. They need to extract their core nutrients from protein and fat. However, the cheaper the cat food, the higher the carbohydrate content and the lower the actual meat protein. It is exactly like feeding a human bodybuilder nothing but potato chips. Their stomach might feel totally full, but their cells are screaming because they lack core nutrients. Because their body is not getting the essential building blocks it needs, the brain keeps sending out extreme hunger signals. They eat constantly, but remain nutritionally starved. According to American feed standards, cat food must have a minimum of 26% protein by dry weight, but some commercial brands barely scrape by this absolute minimum. The tragic result? They consume enough physical volume, but the nutrition is terrible. This traps your cat in a vicious cycle of endless eating, searching for missing nutrients. Now, let us talk about a major turning point in a cat's life: neutering. Getting fixed is a massive factor that dramatically influences their appetite and their metabolism. According to veterinary data, a cat's daily energy requirement drops by about 30% after surgery, but incredibly, their actual appetite often increases significantly. As sex hormones vanish from their system, their resting metabolic rate slows down. Their taste buds seem to improve, meaning the exact same portion of food now makes them fatter. Between 1 to 3 months post-surgery, their appetite stabilizes, but their weight starts creeping up. If owners do not strictly reduce food portions during this critical window, you are essentially laying the first brick on the road to severe feline obesity. It is a biological trap that catches millions of well-meaning cat parents completely off guard. Switching to a specialized neutered cat diet, or simply cutting their regular kibble portion by 20 to 30% is the absolute most critical management point here. But here is where things get truly alarming. You must be deeply aware that excessive begging might not be a behavioral habit at all. It could be a glaring siren for disease. The most common culprit is hyperthyroidism. This is a condition where the thyroid gland goes rogue, pumping out excessive hormones and shifting their metabolism into hyperdrive. It predominantly strikes senior cats over the age of 7. The cruelest part is that outwardly, your old cat suddenly seems super energetic, playful, and incredibly hungry. Owners often think their cat is magically getting younger. That is the trap. They are eating massive amounts of food, but somehow they are rapidly losing weight and muscle mass. If they are inhaling food, dropping weight, drinking oceans of water, flooding the litter box, and suddenly becoming irritable or vocal, you must suspect hyperthyroidism immediately. When left untreated, this high-speed metabolism puts immense strain on their tiny hearts. It can quickly lead to severe cardiovascular disease, which is absolutely terrifying. So, if your senior citizen cat suddenly starts acting like a ravenous marathon-running kitten, do not celebrate just yet. It is time to book an immediate trip to the veterinarian. Next up on the medical red flag list is diabetes. Feline diabetes operates on a mechanism incredibly similar to human, type 2 diabetes. It is all about insulin resistance. When insulin stops working correctly, the glucose floating in their bloodstream cannot enter the cells. The cells are essentially locked tight, completely deprived of any fuel. Because the cells are starving, the cat's brain panics. It interprets this as a severe energy crisis and continuously blasts out distress signals screaming, "We are starving, eat." No matter how much kibble they inhale, that food never converts into usable cellular energy. They are desperately trying to eat, yet their body weight keeps dropping paradoxically. According to agricultural researchers in Greece, the prevalence of feline diabetes skyrocketed from 0.4% in 2005 to nearly 1.6% in 2020. That is an almost fourfold increase in just 15 years. And this terrifying statistic aligns perfectly with the explosion of the global indoor cat obesity epidemic. Now, let us talk about a thoroughly disgusting but very real cause: parasite infections. Roundworms are notorious for setting up camp in the intestines and stealing nutrients. The worms intercept the food before the cat can absorb it. So, your cat eats a massive dinner, but the worms get the calories, leaving your cat utterly malnourished and ravenous. And before you say, "But Dr. Luna, my cat never goes outside," spoiler alert, you do. You can easily track microscopic parasite eggs into the house on your shoes or clothing. If they eat like a competitive eater but stay skinny, vomit frequently, have diarrhea, or you see weird stringy things in their poop, it is time for a fecal exam at the vet. Regular deworming easily prevents this horror show. Shockingly, many owners neglect routine deworming simply because they assume an indoor-only cat is safely enclosed in a bubble. We also need to seriously discuss medication side effects. Certain drugs, particularly steroid medications used for skin issues or bowel disease, cause a massive spike in appetite. When on steroids, a cat's hunger becomes insatiable and their water intake shoots up. Their weight can balloon incredibly fast, which is a stressful but known side effect. While some weight gain is expected, long-term steroid use can trigger severe secondary issues like diabetes or Cushing syndrome. You must communicate closely with your vet. If the ravenous begging started exactly when they began a new prescription, it is almost certainly a drug reaction. Never adjust doses yourself, always consult the professional. Now we reach the most commonly ignored cause of all, psychological overeating. Yes, cats are emotional creatures and they absolutely use food to self-medicate their feelings. If a cat is chronically bored, depressed, or highly anxious, crunching on kibble provides a tiny hit of dopamine. In veterinary medicine, this is called psychogenic polyphagia. A 2012 Italian study investigated cats with bizarre obsessions with food. They diagnosed severe psychogenic eating disorders, proving cats literally eat to cope with bad environments. When researchers reduced the environmental stress and enriched the cat's daily lives, the obsessive begging and binge eating drastically improved without even restricting the food. Cats trapped indoors with zero toys, cats bullied by other pets in multi-cat homes, or cats traumatized by moving houses are incredibly vulnerable to this psychological overeating. Another fascinating study from 2020 discovered a direct correlation between a cat's impulse control abilities and their weight. Some cats just lack the willpower to stop eating. Cats with weak impulse control simply cannot restrain themselves in front of a full bowl. They gorge themselves uncontrollably, completely ignoring their body's fullness signals. This lack of impulse control perfectly mirrors binge eating disorders in humans. Their brain's reward system gets hijacked, making them completely obsessed with their next meal. Ultimately, a cat's gluttony is rarely just simple hunger. It is a complex, twisted knot of brain chemistry, reward signals, hormonal changes, and severe environmental boredom. In these psychological cases, just starving the cat by brutally cutting their food portions will not fix the root issue. You have to completely overhaul their daily environment. So, what is the actual game plan? How do we fix this? The absolute first step, non-negotiable, is taking your loudly complaining furball to the veterinary clinic for a checkup. You need comprehensive blood work, a thyroid panel, blood glucose tests, and a fecal exam. Ruling out silent biological killers is the starting point for any behavioral treatment. For senior cats over 7, a biannual checkup is highly recommended. Catching hyperthyroidism or diabetes in the early stages makes managing their appetite vastly easier. Once the vet confirms your cat is completely healthy, it is time to tackle their diet and environment. The most effective change is switching to a high-protein, low-carb food. Because cats are apex carnivores, eating high levels of pure animal protein keeps them satiated for much longer. It satisfies their biological cravings efficiently and naturally. Even if the calories are identical, protein-rich food prevents the severe blood sugar spikes and crashes that carbohydrate-heavy, cheap kibbles cause. It stabilizes their hunger. Incorporating wet food is another brilliant tactical move. Wet food is around 70 to 80% water. It adds massive physical volume to their meals without adding fat. This extra moisture physically fills up their tiny ping pong ball stomach, triggering the stretch receptors that tell the brain, "Hey, we are full." It reduces calorie intake. Warning: when upgrading their diet, do not switch it overnight. Transition slowly over a week to 10 days, gradually mixing the old and new food to avoid explosive diarrhea. Next, we must fix the feeding method. Stop dumping massive piles of food twice a day. Instead, divide their daily calorie allowance into 4 or 5 tiny, frequent micromeals. This perfectly mimics their natural hunting rhythm. If you work long hours, invest in an automatic smart feeder. It dispenses precise portions at scheduled times while you work. To take it to the next level, introduce puzzle feeders and snuffle mats. These are brilliant devices that force the cat to use their brain and paws to extract their dry kibble. Puzzle feeders simulate the mental and physical effort of hunting. It dramatically slows down their eating speed, totally preventing the inhale and vomit routine we all hate. By making them work for their dinner, you provide massive mental stimulation. It satisfies their primal predatory instincts, leaving them feeling mentally exhausted and content. Environmental enrichment is another non-negotiable step. If food is the only exciting thing in your cat's boring life, of course they will obsess over it all day. Give them a hobby. Install tall cat trees and wall shelves to expand their vertical territory. Engage them in active play for at least 15 solid minutes a day using wand toys or laser pointers. Set up a window hammock so they can watch birds or play cat TV on your monitor. Flooding their senses with visual stimulation actively distracts their brain from thinking about food. If you live in a multi-cat household, resource guarding causes massive stress eating. You must separate their resources to stop the invisible warfare happening in your kitchen. Ensure there are multiple food bowls, water stations, and litter boxes placed in completely different rooms. Removing the intense competition drastically lowers their daily anxiety levels. Finally, we have to talk about your weakness: treats. When your cat meows cutely, you instinctively toss them a snack. Congratulations, you just trained them to scream for food. Cats are incredibly smart. They quickly learn that crying equals snacks. This creates an escalating loop where they demand food louder and more aggressively every single day. Treats should never exceed 10% of their daily caloric intake. It requires strict discipline. Do not cave in just because they give you those big, sad, manipulative eyes. When they beg, redirect their attention immediately. Pull out a toy, brush them, or offer some cuddles. Teach them that begging results in playtime, not extra calories. At first, they will protest loudly. They might even throw a feline tantrum. But if you maintain strict consistency, they will eventually unlearn the toxic begging behavior entirely. To summarize this entire mystery, a cat's obsessive gluttony is almost never just a single, simple cause. It is a massive web of biological, medical, and psychological factors. It is the clash between their wild instincts and boring indoor lives. It is the nutritional void of cheap carbs. It is the hormonal crash after getting spayed or neutered. It could be the terrifying onset of endocrine diseases like hyperthyroidism or diabetes. It could be invisible parasites stealing their food or the side effects of medications. And very often, it is profound psychological stress. They are bored out of their tiny minds, and eating is the only thing that brings them a fleeting moment of happiness. The most important takeaway today is this: do not just laugh it off. When you see a desperately hungry, screaming cat, do not just call them a cute, chunky monkey and ignore it. Obesity is not an aesthetic issue. It is a deadly disease. It leads to joint destruction, fatty liver syndrome, urinary tract blockages, and severe chronic pain. It is brutal. Letting them become obese shaves up to 2.5 years off their precious lifespan. Giving in to their begging is not showing them love. It is slowly killing them with kindness. What we must do as responsible guardians is step back, objectively evaluate their physical condition, and systematically rule out all potential medical emergencies with a vet. Once they are cleared medically, we take charge. We upgrade their diet quality, we ditch the giant free feeding bowls, and we implement smart, engaging feeding strategies. We transform their boring living room into a feline amusement park, offering them mental stimulation and physical exercise so they do not have to rely on kibble for dopamine. Please remember, when your cat cries at the empty bowl, blindly dumping more food is not true affection. True love is protecting their health, even when they are annoyed at you. One tiny, consistent change in how you feed and interact with your feline overlord can dramatically alter their health trajectory and add years to their wonderful life. So starting today, I challenge you to observe your cat's behavior around the food bowl with a critical, scientific eye. Are they truly hungry or just bored, sick, or stressed? Decode the mystery. Be the detective your cat desperately needs you to be. They cannot speak our language, so it is entirely up to us to interpret their frantic meows correctly. If you found this deep dive helpful, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. We have plenty more weird, wonderful, and slightly gross feline mysteries to unravel together. I am Dr. Luna, and this has been Purr Decoder. Keep asking questions, keep observing your pets, and as always, stay endlessly curious about the animals we share our homes with.